Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are exploring a really fascinating set of notes we recently received.
Yeah, it's called the Internal Dawn, Finding the Night of Power.
Right. And what we're doing today is taking a concept that you might think you know, or maybe you're encountering it for the very first time right now, and looking at a complete reinterpretation of it.
A total paradigm shift.
Exactly. Specifically, we're looking at the concept of Laylatul Qadr, which in Islamic tradition is known as the night of destiny or the night of power.
Right. And when you usually hear about this topic, it's discussed in a very strict, external, calendar-based framework.
Hmm.
Looking at the sky, tracking dates.
Finding the specific night.
Yeah. But the source material we're looking at today offers a deeply psychological argument instead. The author moves this concept entirely away from being a literal date on a wall calendar and frames it as a deeply personal, internal human awakening.
Which is a core mission of our conversation today, because it's so easy for ancient spiritual concepts to just become, well, ritualized, right? Just a date you circle in red ink.
Absolutely.
We want to explore how this author strips all of that away to argue for a psychological function that feels incredibly relevant to the modern human condition, to your life listening to this right now today, regardless of your personal background.
What's really fascinating here is the author's observation about how these ancient spiritual concepts get trapped in the mechanics of ritual. Over centuries, humanity has this tendency to take profound ideas and institutionalize them.
We get bogged down in the rules.
Right. We start focusing heavily on the when and the how, and we totally lose sight of the why. And the notes we're examining attempt to reverse that process. They strip away the literalism and ask, what is the actual psychological utility of this ancient text?
And the author makes a really interesting analogy right out of the gate to set this up. They suggest that chapter 97 of the Quran Surah Al-Qadr, which is the chapter specifically about this night of power, shouldn't be read as an informational textbook.
Right.
You aren't supposed to read it to just gather historical facts. The author argues it's designed more like an advertisement, like a teaser or a movie trailer.
Which is a striking approach to apply to a religious text. I mean, think about a teaser trailer. It doesn't give you the whole plot of the movie.
Yeah, it just gives you flashes.
Exactly. Its entire functional purpose is to create a gap in your knowledge. It provides just enough evocative imagery to make you realize there's something significant out there that you do not fully understand yet.
It makes you want to go see the movie.
Yes. It creates hunger. It creates motivation for exploration.
And the author points to the text itself to support this. So Surah 97, verse 2, actively asks the reader a question. The quote is, let me find it, and what will make you comprehend what the night of destiny is. So rather than just stating a fact, the text is essentially challenging the reader's baseline understanding right there.
That phrasing sets up a mystery. By asking, what will make you comprehend? The author suggests the text is acknowledging that human intellect alone might not be enough to grasp the magnitude of the concept.
It's beyond just basic logic.
Yeah, it tells the reader that this isn't just a historical trivia point to memorize. It's a profound experience that must be actively sought out.
But if this is something to be sought out, here's where the author introduces a major logical hurdle. Because for centuries, scholars have debated exactly when this night of power happens externally, right? They look at the sky, track the moon, argue over specific dates. So how does the author reconcile that historical search with this new internal interpretation?
Well, the notes highlight a pretty massive geographical and logistical problem with viewing this as a literal universal night.
The lunar calendar issue.
Exactly. Tracking this literal night relies on the Hijri calendar, the Islamic lunar calendar, and specifically the tradition of finding it on an odd-numbered date in the last 10 days of the month of Ramadan.
Right.
But because lunar sightings vary globally, an odd night in one part of the world might be an even night in another part of the world.
Not to mention the hemispheres.
Right. When it's night in one hemisphere, it's broad daylight in the opposite hemisphere.
So the argument is that if this were a specific, singular external event happening in the physical atmosphere, the global variables are just too inconsistent to make any sense.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture the author is painting,
Yeah.
the implication is quite a paradigm shift. If the night isn't an external phenomenon governed by the rotation of the Earth and the phases of the moon,
Then it has to be internal.
it must be an internal state of the human being.
And that reframes everything. The text suggests that the night actually represents our default state. It's the state of everyday ignorance that we are currently living in.
We walk around in this kind of psychological or spiritual slumber. The author frames our everyday existence, living on autopilot, reacting to stimuli without deeper awareness, as being in the dark.
We're stumbling around in the dark.
Exactly. Therefore, the night of power is not a date on a calendar. It's the specific moment that this internal darkness is shaken. It is a sudden internal dawn where a person finally sees the light of their own consciousness.
Let's explore what that spiritual slumber actually looks like for a moment, because the author's metaphor is really striking. I mean, think about an average day for you. You wake up, you immediately check your phone.
Before you even get out of bed.
Right. Then you commute, you answer 100 emails, you pay bills, you doom scroll the news, and you go to sleep. You spend so much of your life just reacting to external pressures, completely blind to the deeper realities of your own existence.
Just surviving the day.
Yeah. And to call that default state of burnout and distraction a night, waiting for a dawn, that is a powerful way to look at the human condition.
It changes the concept from something a person passively waits for once a year into an urgent, active waking up. You aren't waiting for the universe to do something to you anymore.
You're doing it yourself.
You're waiting for a profound shift to occur within you.
Okay, but if this was traditionally viewed as a massive cosmic event, how does the author explain the way it was historically practiced? Because surely centuries of tradition didn't just ignore the physical implications.
The author actually uses the historical traditions surrounding the prophet to back up this internal interpretation. The notes reference Surah 97, verse 4, which states that on this night, the angels and the spirit come down by the permission of their Lord with his decrees for all matters.
Which sounds incredibly literal. If someone takes that literally as a massive external event happening outside with angels descending into the physical world, you'd expect a very specific human reaction.
Right. I mean, human beings typically react to massive external events by making them public spectacles. We gather, we celebrate, we look up at the sky.
Throw a welcome party.
Exactly. If you knew celestial beings were physically descending into your city, the natural inclination would be to go outside and witness it. But the historical texts show the prophet did the exact opposite.
He didn't look up at the sky at all.
No. He didn't organize a public gathering. He removed himself from all external distractions. He went into intense seclusion in the mosque, a practice known as itikaf, and focused purely inward through prayer.
So the author uses that historical precedent to ask a vital question. If the angels were literally descending in the physical atmosphere, why would he lock himself away to look inward?
It raises such an important point about the nature of the experience the author is trying to describe. It reinforces the argument that the descent of the angels and the spirit, this profound moment of divine decree, is something that happens within the quiet space of human consciousness.
It's an internal revelation.
Not an atmospheric anomaly.
Yes. There's also this subtle linguistic clue from the historical traditions that the notes point out, involving Aisha, the prophet's wife.
The phrasing of her question is a crucial piece of the author's argument here. The notes mention that Aisha asked the prophet what she should do if she found the night.
She didn't ask what she should do when it happens. She asked what to do if she found it.
The precision of the language there really supports the internal framework. When it happens implies an external event that occurs regardless of your participation.
Like a thunderstorm.
Right. You don't find a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
It simply happens around you. You just get wet.
Yeah.
But finding something implies a search. It implies a personal discovery. The author argues this language proves it is a state you have to actively uncover within yourself.
So what does this search actually require from you, the person listening right now? If the goal is seclusion, looking inward, and finding a hidden state of awareness, how does the author suggest we actually navigate that?
The notes confront how incredibly difficult this process is, particularly in modern times. The author writes that the most difficult thing to do today is to remove ourselves from distractions and focus inside.
Nighttime is no longer a time of quiet reflection for most of us.
Not at all. It's often the only time we have to ourselves, and we immediately fill it with screens, endless scrolling, and lingering anxieties from the workday.
Distraction is our absolute default state. Your phone is buzzing, the television is on in the background, your mind is racing with a to-do list for tomorrow. It is an enormous challenge to actually sit in silence and look at your own internal darkness.
We seem to be terrified of the dark, both literally and metaphorically.
Modern society is practically engineered to help us avoid that silence, because the moment you sit in true silence, you have to face yourself.
You have to face your own internal night.
Right. And the paradox this text presents, according to the author, is that you can only find that dawn of awakening if you are willing to first sit quietly in the dark and confront your own baseline ignorance.
Which is terrifying for a lot of people.
It really is. Now, the notes then transition to what feels like the emotional heartbeat of this entire argument. We've established the setup and the need for internal focus. But what is the actual emotional mechanism of this night? What happens when a person actually finds it? The author points to the psychology of forgiveness.
Yeah, the theological premise of this author's framework
Hmm.
is that the divine is constantly forgiving. God forgives all the time. But the author identifies a deeply human psychological block. There is a massive gap between knowing a fact intellectually and actually feeling it viscerally.
The notes explicitly state it's a matter of feeling forgiven.
We have to distinguish between habitual forgiveness and actual forgiveness. For many people who practice a religion or a spiritual tradition, asking for forgiveness becomes a rote habit.
You just go through the motions?
You say the words, you do the physical motions of a prayer, but it just becomes background noise. You might intellectually know that your theology says you were forgiven, but your internal emotional state doesn't shift at all.
You still carry the guilt.
You carry the guilt, the anxiety, the heavy psychological weight of your past actions.
Think about the difference between a casual apology and a profound one. If you bump into a stranger on the street, you say sorry, they say it's fine, and you both move on. It is entirely habitual.
Meaningless, really.
Right. But imagine a scenario where you deeply hurt someone you love. After a long, painful, tearful conversation, they look you in the eyes and say, I forgive you. In that specific moment, you can actually feel a physical weight lift off your chest. Your breathing changes.
It's a physical release.
Yes. And the author is arguing that Laylatul Qadr is about achieving that second type of feeling on a spiritual level.
That visceral feeling of the weightlifting, that undeniable sensation of being purified,
Yeah.
is what the source argues this night actually facilitates. It isn't about the divine suddenly deciding to grant forgiveness on a specific Tuesday night in Ramadan.
Right.
It's about the human being finally reaching an internal state of quiet and focus, where they are capable of feeling the forgiveness that was already there.
The author connects this directly to Surah 97, verse 5, which reads, "It is all peace till the break of dawn."
In this context, that word peace takes on a very specific psychological meaning. It's not referring to geopolitical peace or the absence of external conflict.
No.
It's referring to the profound internal quiet that comes from actual, realized forgiveness. It's the end of the internal war we constantly wage against ourselves.
It's the moment when the buzzing in your head finally stops. You look inside, you experience that release of guilt, and you are entirely at peace. But, and this is a big but, the author tackles one more massive misconception that people often get hung up on, and it has to do with how we quantify spiritual growth.
The author is very candid about a mathematical misconception they used to hold regarding Surah 97, verse 3, which states, "The night of destiny is better than 1,000 months."
1,000 months calculates to roughly 83 years, which is effectively a human lifetime.
Yeah, right. And the author admits to previously reading that verse, literally and mathematically. They viewed it through a very transactional lens, treating human spiritual growth like a ledger book or a high score.
It's the human instinct to gamify morality. A lot of people view this verse like a booster round in a video game.
Oh, absolutely.
The mindset is that if you find this specific night, it acts as a 1000x XP multiplier, where any good deed you do suddenly gets multiplied by 1,000 for maximum heavenly reward points. You perform one prayer, and you get the credit for having prayed continuously for 83 years.
That transactional view of spirituality is incredibly common, but the author argues it entirely misses the psychological depth of the text. If we carry forward the premise that this is an internal shift rather than an external event, the 1,000 months cannot just be a math equation for reward points.
It's not about math.
No. The author suggests it represents the sudden collapse of time.
How does the author explain that collapse of time in a practical sense?
Well, to achieve a true, deep feeling of connection to the divine, to feel utterly forgiven, purified, and at peace, might normally take a human being a lifetime of grueling, continuous, repetitive spiritual work.
Yeah, it might take 83 years of meditation, therapy, or prayer to reach that peak state of enlightenment and self-awareness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The argument is that on this specific internal night of power, that feeling of immense growth happens instantly. The author writes, the feeling of being forgiven and connection to God that can be felt with 1,000 months of worship can be felt instantly during that time.
Instantaneous transformation.
When a person manages to strip away the modern distractions, when they truly look inward and that internal darkness is shaken, the emotional and spiritual maturity that should take a lifetime to cultivate happens in a single profound moment. Time collapses in on itself.
The notes tie this concept right back to the first verse of the surah, which says, "We sent it down on the night of destiny," referring to the Quran. The author connects the revelation of the text to the act of reciting it, or praying during this internal awakening. The argument is that when you engage with those spiritual practices in this hyper-aware, undistracted state, the transformation hits you all at once.
You don't have to grind for 83 years to feel a connection. You can feel it fully right now.
This interpretation highlights an incredible urgency. It tells the reader that you don't have to wait until the end of your life to find peace or clarity. The potential for a lifetime of spiritual maturity exists within the human mind right now, in this very moment, waiting for the right conditions to be unlocked.
It's a very empowering message.
It really is. This has been an incredibly dense and thought-provoking journey through these notes. To summarize the author's argument, we started with a concept widely viewed as a literal external date on a religious calendar, a night where angels physically descend and people attempt to mathematically multiply their good deeds.
And we explored how the source material systematically dismantles that external view. By analyzing the teaser trailer nature of the verses, the geographical inconsistencies of a lunar calendar, and the historical evidence of the prophet's inward seclusion, the author reframes this as an urgent psychological call to action.
It's framed as a challenge to wake up from our default state of ignorance, the everyday night of our distracted autopilot lives. The author is urging us to put away our buzz-and-magreens, sit in the terrifying silence of our own minds, and seek out the visceral, deeply felt peace of true forgiveness. A peace that can instantly transform a lifetime of searching into a single moment of profound connection.
And as we conclude, this interpretation raises a fascinating philosophical question to ponder. The text of Surah 97, verse 5, states that this peace lasts till the break of dawn.
Right.
If we accept the author's premise that the night is our default state of ignorance, and this moment of power provides a sudden 83-year leap in spiritual maturity, what happens when the dawn finally breaks?
The return to reality.
Exactly. The dawn represents the return to normal waking consciousness in the everyday world. Consider how jarring, or perhaps how incredibly beautiful it must be to wake up the morning after this massive internal shift.
Because you've changed, but the world hasn't.
Right. You've experienced an instantaneous lifetime of psychological growth.
Yeah.
But the sun is up. You still have to commute. Your phone is going to start ringing. You have to navigate your normal, highly distracted life. But you have to do it as a completely transformed person. The challenge left for you, the reader, is how do you carry the profound peace of that dawn with you into the noise of the day?
That is a powerful thought to leave on. You experience the internal dawn, but you still have to live in the daylight. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. It's been a privilege to explore these complex ideas with you. As you go back to your day, your tasks, and the constant noise of the modern world, we hope you remember to keep questioning the concepts you think you already understand. Keep learning, keep pushing past the surface, and most importantly, keep looking inward. There is a whole universe in there waiting for you to discover it. Take care, everyone.